Hey guys, this is Anastasia Autumnfire, and I've got a lot of videos that I want to make. Every time I make a video that's just kind of a me rambling thing, I try to kind of sit back and really think about what points I want to get across, refine it as much as I can possibly do, which isn't very much at times, but just try to be as clear and concise, at least in the outlining of it. For this reason, I haven't really put up a lot of videos lately. I've kind of been a jumble in my head and not necessarily sure how to put things out on YouTube. This video, however, was one that kind of keeps coming up to me in my mind, and it hasn't been refined. It's not 100% there, but I'm going for it because it does concern St. Patrick's Day, which is tomorrow. So kind of a now or never type of a deal. And if I do begin to ramble or carry on, or I'm not clear on things, please don't hesitate to, question something, or I'm always open to chat a bit and try to explain things better if I'm not clear in my thinking. But I wanted to get this out. And again, it is my thought process. These are my opinions. By no means is this something that anyone else has to believe or adhere to. And in no way am I insulting or degrading anyone else's beliefs, practices, or what have you. Just putting that out there as is usual. St. Patrick's Day has always been a thing for me. I've always enjoyed it, not in the paying homage to St. Patrick, and also not in the, woo, let's go out and drink. I mean, don't get me wrong, I like drinking. I'm all for it. But it was always something a little bit more ingrained in me. My grandfather was huge on St. Patrick's Day. We would have the traditional corned beef and cabbage, and you would have a pint, and you would toast to your family, your lineage. He kind of came from the Irish, Scottish, British areas, or at least his family did. His line did. And so we would always raise a glass to the ancestors, basically. It was never put in those terms because he wasn't really a spiritual kind of guy. But that's what it was. You would raise a glass to Mother Frances. That was his mom. And we would cheers them with an Irish blessing, an Irish toast. But it was never for St. Patrick. It was always about family. It was about friends. It was about home. It was about your roots. And I never really thought about that much until I rededicated myself to my path and really focused on my spirituality and really started to understand myself as a pagan. And the more I understand myself as a pagan, the more I understand that concept of it being about your family, about your line, about your lineage, about your ancestors, about family. And I guess this kind of is diverging from that whole spiel about your line and your lineage, but I think family can and oftentimes does go well beyond blood. I know I have friends that, my witchy sister in arms, Kristen, she is like a sister to me, no matter what. She'll always be that to me. And that's a bond that it doesn't matter if there's blood or not. It's just there. And I do believe in that kind of family as well. So by no means am I degrading that. But the idea is to remember where you come from, basically. And this year I've read quite a few articles on St. Patrick's Day for pagans and what that means. And if you're friends with me on Facebook, I even reposted one that I just thought was so insightful and so right on. Like it put into words everything I ever felt about the quote-unquote holiday as a pagan. So I reposted it and thought it was a wonderful thing and carried on with my life. And then lately, like in the last week or so, I've had a lot of people who know I'm pagan and know that I'm working with Celtic traditions in my practice as well. And they've even asked, oh, are you excited for St. Patrick's Day? And I'm never going to be that person where, oh, you called, how silly are you to ask if I celebrate St. Patrick's Day or ask me if I'm excited for St. Patrick's Day when it's dealing with a saint and I'm a pagan. I'll never be that person because there's so many different branches of paganism, and there are people who see themselves as Christian witches. There are people that even as pagans will still honor certain saints and do recognize that. So I'm by no means am being critical of that, but I don't revere the saints. I don't honor them. That's wrong phrasing. I don't worship them. I don't see them as, they haven't, that's just not something I've opened myself up to or that has come to me as part of my path, if that makes sense. In no means am I degrading it or insulting it for those who do have it as their path. I just don't. At least not at this point. And it didn't really strike me as odd. And then I really started thinking about it, because I am going out tomorrow night, and I am excited about it. And every year I still get amped about St. Patrick's Day. I still get amped about making the corned beef and cabbage for my family and, having a beer or two. And I started to question if I was a bad pagan, in a way, for looking forward to this day and taking part in any sort of dealing with it. And the answer came rather quick to me, which is no. I shouldn't feel bad. I'm not a bad pagan. I'm not a bad anything. Especially with the reasonings that I celebrate it. I do not celebrate St. Patrick's Day to honor St. Patrick. St. Patrick for me is not a warm and fuzzy figure. I'm sure as many of you know, St. Patrick is known as the person who drove the snakes out of Ireland. The snakes were not actual snakes. They were pagans. He drove paganism out of Ireland. Being that I had ancestors there, it's pretty safe to say I had ancestors that would have dealt with the conversion process. And conversion, although there, some, I've read, I have watched documentaries, I've read books where it talks about it being a relatively easy conversion in Ireland because it was a lot of symbolism being shifted and legends being shifted and things like that, and people just magically following. And no, I don't think that's true. I think in any conversion, especially about something as close to people's hearts as their faith and spiritual structure, is going to be painful and hard. So this is a man who who took pagans and in some cases, again, I'm not an expert, I'm not a scholar, I don't know the histories. I know a few documentaries that I've watched, but I just, and I'm not blaming all of it on him. I think I take St. Patrick's Day to honor those who were affected by conversion to Christianity, from paganism to Christianity. People that had to leave their faith behind for fear of, I'm sorry, excuse me, for fear of losing their family, losing their life, losing their land, losing, heaven knows what. I I apologize. I'm not very refined in my thinking process right now. It's just kind of going off the cuff. But that's what I think of when someone brings up St. Patrick's Day, is we're celebrating every time people were to raise a glass to him. It almost feels like you're celebrating the fact that he took people from something that they believed. He forced change upon people. He some people have said, he murdered people, he killed people, and I know that happens. I know that's a thing. I know history is very bloody. And by no means and I don't mean to dishonor him or what he accomplished for people that do venerate it. It's just not my thing. But since it is not my thing, and I still do hold St. Patrick's Day in esteem, how can I do that? How can I celebrate this day that, when I am personally so against its patron saint? And that's family. For me, that's what it's about. It's about, when I raise a glass on St. Patrick's Day, it's to celebrate my family and my ancestry. It's to celebrate witches who have come before me and made it easier to walk my path. It's to celebrate the fact that I'm now living in a country where I can say I am a witch and a pagan and not fear death and not fear, persecution, aside from getting some sideways looks and perhaps a little bit of embarrassment on, to my family or friends. There are still countries, there are still areas, there are still places in this world, in modern day, where you're a witch, you're dead. It's a thing. And I'm very glad to live in a country where that's not the case. I'm very happy that I can live here and be able to put these videos out and be able to step out of the broom closet should I see fit to. That I have that freedom, that I have that ability. And I don't think those are freedoms or abilities that we would have anywhere in the world if it wasn't for our predecessors. I hope that makes sense to someone other than me. And that's what I celebrate on St. Patrick's Day. The fact that these people, my ancestors, may have died for this. That people in the past stood up for things and said, hey, I get it, you want me to worship your God, but not feeling it. It doesn't resonate with me. And I've been that person where I've been told this is what I should believe, this is what I should think, and I crumbled. And I crumbled a lot quicker and a lot harder for a lot less. It was about, I want to be normal, not they're going to kill me. And I instantly was, nope, I'll believe whatever it is I'm supposed to believe. I'll do whatever it is I'm supposed to do. And it took a lot of reworking and a lot of reprogramming to get out of that mindset. So the fact that people in a much more I wish I had a better word, but I don't, in a much harder time, in a much less forgiving time, and in times where witches were being burned, in times when if you were a little different, you were persecuted. I mean, truly persecuted. That there were people that stood up for that. There were people that held up arms to fight for their ability and right to worship as they saw fit and where they felt correct, to do what they felt was right for them, not what was right for anyone else. And that is what St. Patrick's Day reminds me of, is that there were people like that. There are people like that. I mean, it's still a thing. And I honor that on St. Patrick's Day. St. Patrick's Day, I look at very much like an Irish funeral almost, or an Irish wake. When my grandpa Alan died, he was the same one who wanted the corned beef and cabbage for St. Patrick's Day and was very big on giving toasts and having a pint. He passed away a few years ago now. And when he died, he was an atheist for all intents and purposes. So he wanted to just say flat out, I do not want a regular funeral. I do not want tradition. I want an Irish, he called it an Irish funeral. He wanted friends and family to gather around a bar and drink. And we put in Irish music. And I think it was, oddly enough, I'm pretty sure it was Flogging Molly, which is a punk band, but that's the closest thing anyone had, and it was me that had it. So we put that on, and there was a Amazing Grace that was done on the bagpipes on that album. And every time it would come on, because we kept hitting repeat on the CD, every time it would come on, we would raise a glass and toast him. And it was always a very happy thing. But you remember that he's gone in that. And that carries on through St. Patrick's Day. As much as I celebrate and give thanks to those who came before me, and I celebrate that they came, and I celebrate that they fought, and I celebrate those that to this day are fighting. Even in, free countries where you can practice as you see fit, people that feel they have to stay in the broom closet because it's what they have to do. I celebrate that they have the courage to practice at all, because it's terrifying being someone who's been in the closet. But there's also a bit of sadness, because you realize, at least looking back at the ancestry, we've lost so much. If we look at the Celtic tradition, the Druids, who didn't write down anything. It was all uh, speech and talking and teaching and lessons, and it was all person to person. They didn't write anything down. We lost how much knowledge there. We to this day have lost, and not just in the Celtic tradition, but all cultures, we've lost names of deities. We've lost names of rituals. We've lost so much knowledge because the people that write history are the people that win. And history has shown us that people that win 9 times out of 10 were Christians, or they converted. And I hope, I really hope this isn't coming across as a Christian bashing, because that's so not what I'm about. It's just, I'm just trying to explain why I celebrate something that, if you really get to the meat of it, is a Christian observance. No, that's wrong, because let's be honest, St. Patrick's Day is about drinking. But I mean, it's named after a Christian saint or a Catholic saint, and I don't know. I'm starting to ramble. I can feel it. But that is how I view St. Patrick's Day for me. I still go out. I'll wear some amount of green. But otherwise, I don't do the head to toe thing. Dressing up like a leprechaun, I would find extremely, that's not the right word. I would not feel comfortable dressing up as a leprechaun, because I do believe in the fae and the good folk, and I do believe in leprechauns, and I don't want to piss any off. But I just, I don't observe it the way it has become observed in pop culture and in today's society. It has a much deeper meaning for me. It has a much more powerful meaning. It's still about fun. It's still about celebration, because there's so much to celebrate. But it's also to remember what we have lost, all that we've given. But it makes the fact that we're still here a little bit more sweeter. I mean, think about all the things that, I mean, we still have a huge base of paganism. We have people that are reconstructing the old ways. We have druids again, and are rebuilding the goddess, and beginning to really kind of get back to a knowledge that we haven't had in so long. And that's what I raise a glass to. I raise a glass to the ancestors. I raise a glass to their sacrifices. I raise a glass to everyone who had to convert or died in that process. I raise a glass to everyone who lost something because they had to change who they were, whether they were Celtic or not. I raise a glass for my family, for my friends, in the past, in the present, and in the future. I do not raise a glass to St. Patrick. I instead choose to raise a glass to the snakes. Because yeah. I'll leave it there. I do celebrate St. Patrick's Day, but I do so for the snakes. And I hope that makes sense to anybody else besides me. But if not, at least I got those sentiments out into the universe before tomorrow. Yeah. Thanks, guys.